Yay. Okay. Hi guys. Happy Monday. I missed y'all last week. Okay. I'm excited for this one. I take some of my coffee. I'm so tired. One of my friends asked me if I wanted to on Friday, asked me if I wanted to take Bennett to Disney with her on Sunday. And so we had like a spontaneous Disney trip yesterday, which was awesome. But I'm so tired. Like I forgot that you basically walk a half marathon. Hi guys. Hey Michelle. Hey Manali. Hey Lauren. Thank you guys for being here. I always forget that you basically like walk a half marathon when you're doing that. And I just went with my girlfriend O'Kenny. So anyway, I'm like where am I? What's my name? But it was so fun and so worth it. Christina said I was lost. I know you would be. I thought of you when I was there. So fun. Can't wait to go back, but it's a lot. Yeah, totally. It's like 10. It was like literally 10 out of 10 fun, like the best. But now I'm like, ugh. An introvert's worst. Hey, Jess, welcome. I'm so happy to see you guys today. Yeah, it was like just so good. But yeah, I'm like, how do we do this? Like, how do we bounce back from this? Like, I feel like I'm like not even old, but I'm like 38. I'm like, I just don't bounce back like I used to. Like, my legs hurt, my body hurts. Anyway, I'm gonna stop bitching because it was wonderful. But anyway, context for like if my brain seems off today, it's because it in fact is. Um, what does Bennett love most about Disney and what does Lacey love most? Okay, well, we have the same favorite ride, which I feel very grateful for because that makes life easier. But Bennett loves Haunted Mansion, which is so funny because I feel like most 2-year-olds are like scared of that right at that stage, but he loves Haunted Mansion. That's my favorite Disney ride too. And so he gets like so happy for it. Like when we were riding it yesterday, he kept being like, Bennett's so happy. Bennett's so happy. It was so cute. Oh, it's your and Claire's favorite. It's the best. And yeah, he was so cute yesterday. He's at such a cute age where he's just amped on life. And he kept being like, Mama is so kind to Bennett. Bennett is so happy. And oh, she's the best. So anyway, I'm tired, but I'm running off the fumes of that because it was so great. Um, okay, let's get into it. I am going to share about some of the best decisions I've made in my business because I felt like that was he always talks about himself in the third person. We're working on that. I don't know why he does that. That is what he does. Oh, Jess, I'm excited for you. It's the best. But I always do need to work on the third person thing. I'm like, oh, he's too, he'll get it. Um, okay, I want to share about best decisions I've made in my business because I feel like, oh yeah, Jess, world or land. um, I think it's just helpful to like have those broken down because I think they're not always what we think they're going to be. And also, like, I think that so often we think they're huge ones or like really, like, there's a ton of them or really big ones or whatever. And if I think about like, what were some of the like best strategic decisions I made? There's like a few, right? And so I really just wanted to share about that because I feel like, we sometimes overcomplicate it. We don't always name how simple that can be. So I'm going to share those with you today. The giveaway for today, if you participate, any comment counts, just for being here and spending time with us. Comment counts because obviously that's how we have to know you're participating. But you're entered to win a $100 gift card. Just again, as a thank you for being here. Also want to say this at the beginning before I forget, but if you haven't signed up yet, I'm doing a masterclass next Monday at this time. Well, a half an hour earlier. So next Monday at 12:30 to 2, I'm doing a masterclass. So I won't be here live, but we'll be on Zoom together. So if you haven't signed up yet, I would love to have you join me for that. It's alituplife.com/steady. I can even put it in. But it's going to be amazing. I really, really hope to see you all there and promise it will be really good. Obviously, our live streams are amazing, but this one is like it's planned for. Like there are slides, there's a whole thing. So obviously these are valuable and I love being here with you guys, but that one's going to be just kind of a step up in next level. So I'd love to have you there. I just dropped the link in, jumped on that sign up within the first hour. The email went out. Oh, yay. Thank you, Lauren. Sarah's going to be there too. That means so much to me, you guys. Thank you. I'm so, so pumped to do it. Okay, so let's dive in. So one of the first decisions I made, which obviously like all of this kind of aligns to the masterclass, of course, but this one particularly is I decided that the best thing I could do for my business was to create simplicity. And I know this sounds almost obvious in some ways and or almost the opposite of what most people think like they would need or need to be capable of holding to create success. But for me personally, and again, all of this is for me, this isn't like for every personality or every human design type or every person or every business model or whatever. But for me, I thrive with simplicity. Like I do. Curious as you're diving into the decisions you made. Sorry, I just lost my thought. I want to see this comment. Curious as you're diving into decisions you made, how relevant they may be for the new business owner. I know many choices I had 4 years ago would be different today. I think a lot of these are relevant. I mean, I think I like the specifics of them would obviously change over the years, but I think they're foundational. So like the one I'm about to say right now is create simplicity. And I think if you're a new business owner, especially, actually, that's 100% the best thing you can focus on. I feel like right now there's just so much everywhere. Like have low ticket, have high ticket, be on TikTok, be on Instagram, have a Facebook group, go live, don't go live, have master classes, have low cost offers, have, I think I said that, but right, like there's just so much out there and there's always something trendy and there's always something everyone else is telling you to do. And it just gets wild so fast. And if you don't focus on how to make it simple, it will not be simple. Like it is not natural, I think, in so many ways for business to be simple. It is almost natural, I think, in our space, especially where it's all in your face all day, every day, to overcomplicate it. And so if you're not actively working towards simplicity, you will find yourself in complication almost every time. Hey, Eva, welcome. I'm so happy to have you. Michelle says, as someone whose brain loves to overcomplicate things, yes to simplicity. Taking notes. Thanks, Lauren. Hey, Gwen. Yeah, so this one is like, I think it's like one of those things that we think we'll kind of default to or something. But if you do not actively choose, I want a simple business, I'm going to create a business with simplicity, it is so easy to get away from that. And I definitely think that, again, always, but especially at the beginning, is wildly important because if you don't stay on your own lane, in your own lane and focus on your own thing and focus on how to build that thing and keep it simple, you're going to build all of these things that like everyone else is telling you to do. And you're going to wonder why it feels so complicated. Steph says simple and keeping up with the evolution of the online space equals definitely a challenge. I mean, totally, right? I mean, that's the point, right? Simplicity while having 100 people tell you different things is hard. And that's why it's the work. And that's why it's such an active decision in business. Like I cannot stress this enough. Like when I say the best decision I made, I had to actively decide I am going to keep things simple. I am not going to run around like a chicken with my head cut off, overcomplicate this, try to convince myself that I can be superwoman and be good at everything because I can't and no one can, right? Simple is hard. We love to complicate things. Yeah, exactly, Gwen. That's the point. Like it's so hard to choose simple sometimes, right? Christina says, so true. I'm on one platform with one core funnel. Amen. And it's been huge for my growth, but I have to constantly tell myself no to shiny objects. Exactly that. Like it's such a practice to say no to the other things, right? Just said what I like swerving through the lanes. It's just kidding. Hey, Maggie, good to see you. Simplicity is one of my core values I come back to over and over again. Yep. So good and simple in theory, so hard in execution. I just totally agree with everything you guys are saying. Like it's so obvious. It's such an obvious choice and it's so hard. It's so hard to practice. There's a Steve Jobs quote that I really like that I always think about. And he talks about how like everyone thinks focus is staying focused on one thing, but it's actually saying no to all of the other things. And I think that's so true of our online space, right? It's not about like pick one perfect thing. It's about being willing to say no to 100 other things as tide shift, as things changes, stuff evolves, whatever. You know what I mean? I feel like there's such a present conversation in our space right now of like, just is high ticket dead or is high ticket still a thing or whatever. And every time I hear stuff like that, I'm just like, I don't care. Like, I'm going to keep doing high ticket because one, that's like what's simple for my business and model. And two, it's just a trend and I'm willing to ride that wave every time. You know what I mean? Um, but again, I had to like actively choose this and actively choose to be like, I want to focus on one thing. And I really actively choose that in a lot of other ways too. Like one decision is the domino for others, right? So it's like focusing on one offer is a choice off of that, right? Focusing on even like Christina was saying, one platform, like obviously I have my Facebook group and I do Instagram, but excuse me, I will tell you, like when I was like, okay, I'm gonna really focus on the Facebook group, Instagram was just like repurpose shit, right? When I was like, okay, I'm really gonna focus on Instagram, my Facebook group is more repurposed stuff. Like it just is what it is, right? Could I build out a team or more structure to try to do both of those at 10 out of 10? Sure. But like, number one, my business doesn't need that level of leads. And number two, like that would just be overcomplicating it. And so even when you make a choice, like, oh, I'm going to focus here, like you have to let something else go often to create that simplicity. And so again, sometimes one decision is the decision, the domino for so many others. And so for me, that's it. Like I have chosen to create simplicity and I try to come back to that again and again and again. Um, and ultimately, like it influences every single decision I made. But if I can track back to like what was one of the best decisions I ever made, it was when in that moment I was like, I'm not building a complicated business. I don't think that's what I want to hold. I don't think that's what's going to get me the most success. I don't think I'm really built for that. Like when I really, really leaned into that, everything got easier. Okay, next one is a very intentional decision to care about profit. I feel like most of the things I'm saying, I feel like this is everything I talk about almost, but it's like leans toward controversial, but actually shouldn't be, right? But like I made a really important decision to care about profit in a space where we're always talking about invest, 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 reinvest, reinvest, reinvest. I'm all for investing in your business. I think it is wildly important. I think being willing to like invest money before you make money is also a really smart decision I've made in my business at one point, to be honest with you. But where I think a lot of business owners go wrong and why this has been a good decision for me is because they never stop that like investment strategy. So like at the beginning of your business, sometimes you have to invest money to make money, like 100%, right? And there are other seasons and times in your business where sometimes that's true for sure. But if you're always in an investment season and you're never ever focusing on profit, reaping the reward, right? You are putting yourself in such a difficult position. No matter how much money you're making, your business is always teetering, right? Your business is always in a place where like a few bad months could send it over the edge, right? And so making a decision to really, really intentionally focus on profit has helped me so, so much because it has created, to go to the masterclass point, so much steadiness for me. And again, it doesn't mean I never invest. I certainly do. But I'm always watching that. I'm always careful about what I'm investing in. I'm always making sure that it feels like it's worth it. I'm always really thinking about, is this just something I'm putting money in because I think it will make my revenue higher? Or is this something I'm putting money in because I actually see how it will return more profit over time? I think so many people invest more and more money to get that revenue number higher and higher. And what they don't realize is they're making their expenses so high in the process that even if their revenue is higher, their expenses are tracking with that so consistently that they're never feeling like they're getting out of their business what they want out of it. I would much rather make less revenue and more profit, right? Like I think we get so conditioned in the online space to make more revenue for like, I don't know, the sake of telling everybody else what our revenue is or something, you know? And it is so detrimental. And I've talked about this before on here, but I think especially at a certain level of business, you know, when we're talking about like you're getting past 100K and stuff, now you have even more resources to invest. And I think what people at that stage do, if they're just like trying to throw money at like, how do I go from 6 figures to 7 figures as fast as humanly possible, you know? And they have like the money to do it. And that's where so many businesses in our industry tank. Like, I think we'll often see and we'll be like, wait, that person was making like 6 figures. Like, why did they close down? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And like, this is why is because they were probably spending 6 figures to make that and or had accumulated so many investments over time that like the 6 figures wasn't going to do it and wasn't going to actually be worth it for them. So I'm not saying there are never seasons where you really go in and you invest, right? Like at the beginning of my business, I invested before I had it. And like that was a decision that has paid off for me tremendously over time, right? But I also think there is like a point where that gets completely out of hand in our industry and makes it so hard to sustain a business, even if you can make revenue, right? Like, are you making enough revenue that it feels worth it for you to keep doing what you're doing? And for so many people, they've overspent so much that the answer is no. In pursuit of what? Like getting to 7 figures as fast as humanly possible? Like, sure, there's value in that from like a growth and messaging perspective. There's obviously value for that in your life. But if the way you're getting there is overspending, 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 it doesn't matter because then you're going to make 7 figures and your expenses are going to be that high too. Like the amount of stress that causes for someone is hard to even like articulate, right? Like when you have built up, like now I'm supposed to be hitting this result all the time, and I almost have to because my expenses are pacing that result. It is wildly stressful and it just gets down to like it's not worth it, right? So important. Thank you, Maggie. Yes to this. Manali said, I feel like people don't stress this enough in our space. I agree with that, right? Because people want people to invest, you know? This is, I love the idea of simplicity. It has worked well for my OBMBA agency. And for my OBMBA mentoring packages, both offers are simple, but scalability is hard for different reasons. So I'm trying to see what simplicity with scalability will look like. Yeah. And honestly, like almost always for me, and like what I see with clients is like, what does simplicity with scalability look like? It's like core or like, what's that one thing you're going all in on? And focusing on how to scale that versus like, I think sometimes people think scalability is just more revenue. And then they do all this stuff, like all these programs that take expenses to build and run and operate. And so, yes, they're making more revenue, but they've increased their expenses just as fast, if not faster than the revenue. And they can't keep up. Like their ship is sinking, you know, even though it looks like they have a lot of programs and a lot of people in them and whatever. And so, just coming back again and again to like, yes, let's strategically invest, but your profit matters. Your profit determines what is worth it for you to show up every day. Your profit determines how your life gets to benefit from your business. Your profit determines how sustainable your business is, the longevity of your business. I mean, it is the marker in many ways for how good you will feel in your business. And I don't mean that in a way to say like there's a right number it has to be, but like if you do not know what number you need to make to feel good there, like that's really something you have to look at. And to keep investing just to try to like prove a bigger number faster without making sure there's profit associated with that is just an absolute recipe for disaster. And again, this is like the big decision that dominoes other decisions. Like, so do I invest in this thing or do I not? Where's our profit at? What do I think this is going to return us? What makes sense over time? Can we handle this investment? Is this investment something that we can support and sustain, et cetera, et cetera? Like, these are important questions. Some of the decisions I've made in my business in the last year have been in large part around profit. And then also some of the decisions I've made have nothing to do with profit. So I'll give you an example. Like one decision I made this year to like restructure some of our team and stuff was like, had to do in some part with what does profit margin look like on all of this and what's making sense there. And then that was like a really important decision. And then what was I going to use as another decision I made. So when we're running steady next week, we ran some ads to it. And it's interesting because obviously like nothing about that like makes sense in the sense that like we have over 700 people on a wait list, like to pay for leads when we already have an abundance of leads is not a smart profit decision, like at all. Right. But the reason I did that is because I'm always thinking about like, are we sustainable? Are we steady? Is this scalable? And so I want to make sure that like that's something we always know we can do. Like, oh yeah, we know the ads thing. We know how to do that. If we ever want to turn that on, we can. And I'm willing to pay money to experiment with that so that I know that we're sustainable and scalable. And because we obviously have the profit to do that. But that's like very much a long-term play. Like that's not going to return for us. Like I'm not selling anything off of steady. I mean, I'll talk about the wait list, right? But I'm not like pitching, like for people to become a client. So we're not going to make money directly off of that, right? And so in a way, it's just like easy to say like, oh, that doesn't totally make sense there. But in another way, it does. Like in another way, it makes sense for our long-term play to spend this much on making sure we're locked in on something in the business. So there's always nuance to it, but I just say that to say, and also like for me, I just like to like learn and try stuff. So there's always like value in it in a way, but you have to make sure your profit's there to do that. If our profit wasn't in a place to do that, I wouldn't be like, oh, let's spend on ads for the heck of it and see. Right. And I would never, ever say, let's spend on ads and just like whatever. I would be like, let's spend on ads because I want this level of like learning and data out of it. And that feels worth it to spend to get that. Do you know what I mean? Okay. Next thing. Scale based on what feels good and sustainable. So again, somehow leans controversial and seems like it should be really normal. But here's what I mean. I feel like so often when people are thinking about, well, I'm going to scale my business, what scales? The only thing they think about is what creates unlimited scalability. Like, what's a program I could put 5,000 people through and. And what most people in our space, I think, fail to realize is that so few coaching businesses in our space truly require unlimited scalability for success. And what I mean by that is like, so few people have such high demand that they need a program that absolutely does not cap on demand in any way, shape, or form, right? That is so few and far between in our industry. Like it's just true. And so when we're building for like scale, but we don't have the demand for scale, right? Then we're going to feel frustrated in our business really, really quickly. And so I am not saying like you never want to think about, okay, like how can I add more people into my programs? Like, of course you do. But I am saying that when you're building this with this idea of like the solution is being able to add an unlimited amount of people into it as fast as possible, unless you're already adding, have an audience that's just like massively growing and not capped in any way, et cetera, et cetera. That's not the smartest question to ask yourself to scale because you're going to find frustration in that pretty quickly. Like if you build out this whole big program that's meant to scale, then you're going to need probably other support team. You're going to be paying people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if you don't immediately have that influx, how's that going to balance? That's not scalability. Again, you're increasing your expenses faster than you're increasing your revenue. And so when you say, okay, instead, I'm going to scale based on what feels good and sustainable, what you're really doing is going, okay, so I'll use my example. Okay, what I love the most is one-on-one. So I obviously one-on-one is infinitely scalable in the sense that like, yeah, I guess a client could make anything, but like even how much they pay me per month is capped, right? And I can't take an unlimited amount of clients, but my business is still very scalable in the sense that when clients make more, it doesn't cost us more to do that. And so our revenue can go up significantly without our expenses increasing significantly, right? But the real ticket there is I'm doing the thing I like while I'm waiting for that to play out. And so if you would never build that unlimited scalability business model, don't build that anyway. Build the business that you're like, I love that business so much. It's okay if it takes time for me to build up an audience where more people come through the funnel. It's okay if it takes a little bit of time for this to like really take off, because you'll spend that time actually enjoying your business and actually building something you love instead of building something that you'll only love if it's making you X amount, almost like that. When you pick something that you'd only love if you had 2,000 people in it next year or something like that, I'm just making that up. That's a hard one. It really is, because you're going to stay resentful potentially and overcommitted from an expense perspective until that happens. And that's where a lot of people find themselves stuck in business. And again, it's where a lot of people exit businesses, I think, is because they built this kind of monster that feels hard to disengage from, that feels like it requires X amount of ad spend per month, X amount of team per month, X amount of expenses that they didn't quite have the infrastructure or the obsession or passion set up for, and it gets wonky really quickly. And so if you focus scaling on what offer do I love so much that I want to double down on and scale? What thing do I want to be doing for the next 5 years? What conversations do I want to be having again and again? Like, it sounds so cheesy, but that's where shit gets good, truly, because ultimately what you're setting yourself up for there is a business that you know you can sustain off of your energy and your excitement. And I don't mean that like you don't need team or support or structures. I just mean like if you're only building a thing because you think that thing will return X in X time, it's usually really, really easy to be frustrated as an entrepreneur. If you're building a thing because you're like, this is a thing I really, 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 really like, and I think I will figure it out, that's usually where the magic is. Like for me, when I picked the partnership model, I had no idea that could scale to 7 figures. I had no idea that was ever going to happen. I saw absolutely no one else doing it. It's not like I was like, oh, this is my scalable business model, right? Like so and so is doing this and it's working so well. I'm going to go do that and I'm going to build this and then I know it will work. It was not even close to that. Right. It was like, I like one-on-one so much and I don't want to do all this other shit that I don't like. Because I know that that's ultimately not where scalability lies for me. That's when it got good. So I really cannot stress this one enough. Again, I feel like it's the one that's the hardest in some ways because I feel like we want the guarantee, like the idea of picking a business model and trying to scale it because it's what we like. I feel like it feels so uncertain and unstrategic, but to me, it's like one of the most strategic things you can do, because if you're building a business you really like, you're going to ride through the rough patches more easily. You're going to have more resilience. You're going to be getting enough of that fulfillment and kind of like, so word I want, like your business is going to be pouring into enough that it feels like it's worth it to keep going even when it gets hard. But what I see is when someone builds a business that doesn't feel like that to them, the littlest setbacks absolutely fucking throw them, because their cup isn't full enough from the business. Like they haven't built that resilience in the business enough. They're like, it's only worth it if this exact thing is happening in this exact way. And as soon as that exact thing isn't happening in that exact way, they're absolutely just fucking thrown. And it's so hard to come back from that. Like, I mean, literally on anything, right? Like, it's so interesting because I feel like social media is such a good example of this, where like, you're like riding the high of it and then it'll like smack you in the face to a certain extent and be like, you're not like, nobody cares, nobody's listening kind of thing or whatever. And if you're not liking what you're talking about enough that you don't care, it's so easy to be thrown by that. Like, this is just like a perfect, I was trying to think of a perfect example to use, but perfect example for me is, um, it depends, like with everybody, like when I just am like creating content to be like, oh, what do I feel like saying today or whatever, like it usually goes pretty well. I feel like I have a really good handle on content right now. But as I've been focused on study and I'm trying to have this really, really specific niche message that I think honestly is not super popular in our industry, like my Instagram is not popping right now as it normally does, right? Which is totally fine. Again, it like kind of means nothing. But if I was only selling this thing or only doing this masterclass because I thought it was going to do this thing for me and get this result in this way, and then I saw like, oh, I'm not getting the pop I want here, I would be so thrown, right? Like it would be a horrible couple weeks. I would be like, oh my God, this is absolutely not worth it. Like, why am I putting all this effort into it? Da, da, da. But for me, I'm like, I talk about this forever. Like, I don't care. A couple weeks of up and down, whatever is like irrelevant almost. It's not even what I'm trying for. I'm trying to be like, I hope the like very niche group of people who are interested in this find it. And so I think like my point in saying that is like, there's always stuff that's going to throw us up or down in business. We're going to have the launch that's going great and then it's not. And then there's a lull and then there's a high, or there's going to be one launch that goes really great and one launch that doesn't go as great. And it's just like always like gonna have some of that to it, but like you have to like it enough to feel steady in it. You have to like it enough to feel like, oh, that's just part of the game. Instead of like, oh, I should change everything because if it's gonna be like this ever, I don't want it. Does that make sense? Like that's sort of hard to explain. But when you focus on scaling in that way, I think is when you just have so much resilience built up that all of it just feels like, I always use this example, but it's like, it feels like a bug bite, not a broken leg. It's like mildly annoying, but like not really debilitating. And when you're only doing it because you think it's the thing that's going to like make you millions or something like that, and something even small, like your reach is down, goes wrong, it's going to feel like a broken leg and it's going to feel debilitating, even though it's not. Thanks, Lacey. Thanks, Lauren. Um, okay. Last one that I will talk about is I really decided very, very early on in my business, and I can talk about this, that I was going to focus on being supported in my business, and that was always going to be an important part of my business, is having a lot of support. And I mean this through a team lens, but I could mean anything, right? Uh, I feel like I also mean this from a life perspective too. Like I am someone who's like, how can I be more supported? How can I be more supported? Um, but let's just talk about it through a team perspective. I really decided early on I was going to focus on that. So I haven't talked about this in forever, so a lot of you may not know this part of my story, but I hired support really early in my business. So I had, a great month, my second month in business, and I immediately hired. And so to get like VA support, in month 2 of business, I feel like is kind of unusual in a sense. Excuse me, a lot of people don't get it that quickly. But I knew like I wanted to run a business where I could be doing the things that I really love and I had support in the other areas. So I hired early. Trying to think of like what's worth saying about that. And I did not have a great experience, to be honest with you. Again, I've shared some of this and I won't go too in depth here because it's kind of not the point, but I went through like several VAs at the beginning of my business. And if you don't know, my MBA focus was ethical leadership. And so I was like, oh my God, something's wrong with me. Like I'm supposed to know all this shit about leadership. And I like can't seem to like get it right with my VAs. But I stayed so focused on like, I will find the right team and I will be supported. I wasn't like, oh, I tried 2 days and it didn't work, so I'm fucking out. I was like, I am running a business where I feel supported, where I feel like I can be in the zones that I invest in, where I feel like I have other people to help make this happen. Because ultimately, Like, I know that I don't want to run a business where I'm wearing 32 hats. Like, I don't thrive like that. That's not how I operate really best. I don't thrive on the chaos. I don't love context switching 100 times a day. Like, I can do what I can do sometimes. And I'm proud that I like know how to do a lot of things in my business, but like, I know that that's not how I'm going to operate best. And so I just really early on was like, I'm not doing that. I'm getting help on these things. Um, and I truly think, again, domino, like that has been so important for me at every stage of my business. I have been like, I want to feel really, really, really high levels of support. And if I'm not feeling it, I'm willing to make a change there. I'm willing to address it. Because when I feel that, I find it so easy to like show up, do the things, run at things, feel like, okay, someone's got my back on these things so I can focus on like my shit and do it really, really well. When I don't feel like someone has my back on those other things, I find it incredibly like easy to get pulled in a lot of different directions. Um, and that honestly kind of goes back to that simplicity too. Like if I want a simple business where I get to focus on the things that I'm good at, I have to have support in that. And I think so many people, in my opinion, again, controversial, shouldn't be controversial take. So many people overspend on coaching and they underspend on team. And they wonder why business feels so bad is because they're spending at like huge, huge, huge levels for coaching, but they're not getting the support to actually put all that into play and to execute on it. And they feel so much tension because they're getting all this coaching, all these ideas and programs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, whatever. And then they're trying to go execute on that all by themselves. And it's like, that will make for a really chaotic business really quickly. That is one thing I'm going to dive into and study. I have a lot to say about that. Um, but if you focus on that executional support in your business and really feeling like someone has your back on getting shit done in your business, it is wild how you can run with that. And also, what's really interesting about that is, I mean, of course, all this ties together, but if we're thinking about it from a profit perspective too, like let's say a VA is $50 an hour right now or something, right? Let's say you had them for 3 hours a week. Oh God, I'm going to butcher this math. Maybe we should say 4 hours a week so I can do the math easier. And let's just say there's 4 weeks in the month. Like I'm trying to keep this easy for me, guys. That's like $800 a month for 4 hours of work in your business a week, which is like really significant. If you think about it, I gave you an extra 4 hours to work in your business this week. How would things be different for you? Right? Or I gave you an extra 4 hours to like see clients and how would things be different for you profit wise? And so I say all that because most people would like to drop $800 a month on coaching wouldn't even bat an eye. In fact, that would seem wildly cheap, but to think about dropping 800 on team, like sometimes people get really weird about that. And I am by all means, coaching has that value and more. Do not get me wrong. I think it is like one of the best investments we can make. And to go to the profit thing, if that's all you're investing in and you keep over investing there, but not spending 800 bucks, but it could be less too. I just did 4 for the even numbers there, right? But like, if you're not even spending that on your team to go execute on some of that stuff, you're kind of at an imbalance there. And so the reason I say that is because I think sometimes we forget that team support is actually one of the more affordable things. Like I remember when I was feeling kind of like a little stressed at a certain point, just having to like sit down with myself and be like, where do I need more help? And I'm like, oh, I could use some more help around the house. And I was like, oh, ugh, like I don't know about all that. But if I think about like, wait, having more help around the house, like whatever costs X versus like what I'm giving up by not having that is why it's so significant. You know what I mean? So I say all of that to say, like, in our heads, sometimes we're like, oh, I can't possibly have a VA at the stage of my business, or I can't possibly get more support around my home, or I can't possibly whatever. And it's like not usually the case. It's just some kind of story we have in our head. But if we actually look at the numbers, sometimes it's like incredibly helpful and profitable to focus on our support, you know? So I just really wanted to share that because I think that so often we forget that piece, but that has also very much been a domino for me. Like when I'm like I need support in my business, and I will drop everything to get that going. Like, you guys know, at the beginning of this year, beginning to middle of this year, I went through a huge team transition. I did not do anything else in my business at that time besides deal with that. Like, I wasn't running master classes, I wasn't running ads, I wasn't focused on growth, I wasn't adding clients. Like, I was like, I need this part of my business to be solid before anything else gets my attention. And so that is a place I will like drop shit to come back to and figure out and fix, because I just think it makes such a big difference. And so ultimately, I'm not saying again that has to be true for everybody, but if I look at decisions I made in my business, being unwilling to not feel truly supported is one of the best ones that I have made. And it has really, I think, made a difference in how resourced and capable I feel to go out and do the things I need to do. So that is that. Let us recap. Simplicity. Get focused on simplicity and making it simple. Profit, like, it matters. It matters so much. Scale based on what feels good. It sounds silly, but it's like, there's nothing more sustainable. Get supported. All of this is so basic and so obvious, but it applies at every level of business. Whether you're brand new or you've been in it for a long time, simplicity, profit, scaling based on what you're actually good at and getting, like that fulfillment from, being supported, like, all of those give you foundation to go make all the other decisions, to pivot with industry changes, et cetera, et cetera. Like, that is what creates the springboard for everything else. And if you're trying to go out there and, get strategic, pivot with changes, do all this stuff, and you don't have the simplicity, or you don't have the profit, or you don't have the support, you're going to feel under-resourced in doing that. It's going to be really, really hard. And then you're going to feel like something about all that marketing, or, like, stuff you're doing isn't working. And sometimes it's like you haven't built the foundation to make it easier for that to work. So I hope that was helpful. These have served me again and again and again. These few decisions have been the domino for so many other ones. These are not the points I'm sharing in SETI, although the team one I am going to go into a bit more there, but I'm going to get more specific there in terms of all of the stuff I'm teaching. So if you feel like this is just going to be a repeat of, SETI is just going to be a repeat of this, it's not at all. I just want to say that, but it is going to help you apply some of these concepts. We're going to talk about like how to make things simpler and more scalable and all of that kind of stuff. So again, I would love to see you there at liveoflife.com/SETI. I put that comment in at the beginning of the live stream if you just want to go click on the link. So pumped for you to be part of that next week. I know so many of you have signed up that are here, so I will see you next Monday on Zoom. And thank you guys for being here today. I appreciate you. Yay, can't wait. Loved all of these. Thank you, Manali. Thanks. Thank you, Lauren. All right, I will see you guys next Monday. Bye, y'all.